William stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie with the precision of a man who had mastered the art of appearances. The soft glow of the bathroom lights illuminated his chiseled features, casting shadows that hinted at the turmoil beneath his confident exterior. He was a successful entrepreneur, a man who had clawed his way to the top of the tech industry. Yet tonight, as he prepared for a date with Julia, someone he believed could be the one, he felt a twinge of anxiety that he couldn't quite place. "Do I look okay?" he called out to Julia, who was in the adjoining room, her laughter echoing lightly through the walls. "More than okay. You look amazing," she replied, her voice filled with warmth and affection. Julia had a way of making William feel like he could conquer the world. Her optimism was infectious, and tonight they were set to celebrate their budding relationship at one of the city's most exquisite restaurants. William's heart raced at the thought. They had been dating for a few months now, and every moment spent with Julia felt like a breath of fresh air. They shared dreams, aspirations, and laughter that echoed in the quiet corners of their conversations. Julia was everything he had hoped to find after his tumultuous marriage to Sarah. He had convinced himself that he had moved on from the past, but the cracks in that facade were beginning to show as the evening approached. "Ready?" Julia appeared at the doorway, her dress hugging her figure perfectly, exuding both elegance and charm. Her hair cascaded down her shoulders in soft waves, and her smile lit up the dimly lit hallway. William felt a flutter in his chest, a reminder of the joy she brought into his life. "Absolutely," he replied, stepping forward to take her hand. As he clasped her fingers, he felt the warmth of her skin and the promise of a wonderful evening ahead. As they made their way to the restaurant, William couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air felt thick with unspoken tension, and he found himself stealing glances at Julia, searching for any signs of unease. But there was nothing, just her radiant smile and the excitement in her eyes. He brushed aside his worries, determined to enjoy the night. "Have you thought about what you want to order?" Julia asked, breaking the silence as they approached the restaurant's entrance. "Maybe the steak. I've heard great things about it," he suggested, trying to focus on the present. "Good choice. I'm thinking of the risotto. I can't wait to try it," she replied, her enthusiasm infectious. As they stepped inside, the soft hum of conversation enveloped them, and the rich aroma of gourmet dishes wafted through the air. William surveyed the room, taking in the elegant decor and the soft lighting that created an intimate atmosphere. But then his heart dropped when his eyes landed on a familiar figure behind the counter. There she was, Sarah. Time seemed to freeze as William's breath caught in his throat. The sight of his ex-wife, now visibly pregnant, sent a jolt of shock racing through him. Memories he had buried deep within his mind surged forward, flooding his thoughts with images of their past. Laughter, arguments, love, and heartbreak. The years they had spent together felt like a lifetime ago, yet the emotions stirred within him were as fresh as the day they had parted ways. "William, are you okay?" Julia's voice broke through his daze, concern etching her features as she followed his gaze. He struggled to maintain his composure, plastering a smile on his face as he turned back to her, but he could feel the color drain from his cheeks. "Yeah, just a little overwhelmed," he stammered, his mind racing to process the sight of Sarah. "Let's just find our table." He led Julia deeper into the restaurant, feeling an invisible weight pressing down on him as they walked. His heart thudded in his chest, a rapid drumbeat that echoed the turmoil within. Sarah looked different, stronger perhaps, but there was an undeniable vulnerability in her posture that tugged at William's heartstrings. The last time he had seen her, she had been a whirlwind of emotions, a storm that had torn their lives apart. Now, she was a calm before another storm, and he couldn't help but wonder what had brought her to this point. William. Julia's voice pulled him back to reality as they reached their table. You seem a bit distant. Is everything all right? Of course. Just long day at work, he lied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was teetering on the edge of something monumental, though he wasn't sure what it was yet. As they settled into their seats, William's gaze drifted back to the counter where Sarah was working. She moved with a grace that belied her condition, taking orders and serving customers with a smile that felt both familiar and foreign. It struck him how much had changed since they had last spoken, how life had pushed them down different paths, only to bring them back together in this strange, unexpected way. William, Julia said softly, pulling him from his thoughts. What's really bothering you? He hesitated, caught between the urge to confide in her and the fear of opening old wounds. It's just, I didn't expect to see anyone I knew here, he replied, his voice low, hoping to divert her attention. Anyone in particular? She probed gently, her eyes searching his for the truth. Just an old friend, he said, swallowing hard. Nothing to worry about. Julia nodded, though he could sense her lingering doubts. She had a knack for reading people, and he knew he couldn't keep this from her forever. But for now, he just wanted to enjoy the evening, to focus on the woman in front of him who had brought light back into his life. As the waiter approached with their menus, William's thoughts remained tangled in a web of emotions. He felt a sense of dread mixed with nostalgia as he contemplated the possibility of running into Sarah again, what that might mean for his carefully constructed new life. He wished he could push the thoughts away, bury them like he had done in the past. Yet, as the waiter took their orders and walked away, he felt the undeniable pull of the past wrapping around him like a familiar shroud. William. Julia's voice was softer now, tinged with concern. Are you sure you're all right? Yeah, he replied, forcing a smile. Just thinking about some things. Julia reached across the table, her fingers brushing against his. You can talk to me, you know. I'm here for you. His heart swelled with gratitude, but the weight of his past loomed larger than ever. How could he explain the depth of his feelings for Sarah? How could he articulate the confusion that had taken root in his heart? He wanted to be present with Julia, to cherish the moments they had together, but the specter of Sarah threatened to unravel everything. As the evening wore on, laughter and conversation swirled around them, but William's thoughts remained tethered to that moment he had seen Sarah. He couldn't shake the feeling that the night had taken a turn he wasn't prepared for, and as he glanced at Julia, he knew he had to brace himself for whatever lay ahead. Little did he know, the encounter that awaited them would change the course of their lives forever. William sat at the table, his mind racing as he tried to focus on a conversation with Julia. The clinking of silverware and the soft murmur of conversations around them felt distant, almost muted. Instead, the image of Sarah, her hand resting protectively on her burgeoning belly, loomed large in his thoughts. He could feel Julia's gaze piercing through him, her brow slightly furrowed as she noticed his sudden quietness. William. Julia's voice broke through the haze. You've been awfully quiet since we got here. Is everything okay? He forced a smile, but it felt like a mask slipping over his face. Yeah, just a busy day at work, he replied, the lie tasting bitter on his tongue. He could see the doubt flicker in Julia's eyes, but he quickly added, I've just got a lot on my mind, you know? The usual stuff. Julia tilted her head, studying him. You sure it's just work? Because it feels like there's something else bothering you. She reached across the table, placing her hand over his. The warmth of her touch was comforting, yet it only amplified the turmoil inside him. William inhaled deeply, tried to ground himself. I promise, it's nothing major. Just a lot of pressure with a new project I'm working on. He could see Julia wanted to press further, but she nodded, accepting his explanation, albeit reluctantly. His heart ached with guilt. He hated lying to her, especially when she was so earnest in her concern. As they resumed their conversation, William's mind drifted back to Sarah, the memories swirling like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind. How they ended up here, in this moment, so close yet so far apart. He stole another glance at Sarah, who was now engaged in a conversation with another customer, her laughter mingling with the ambient noise of the restaurant. It was a sound he had once cherished, a sound that had comforted him during their marriage. Now it felt like a distant echo of a life that had unraveled before his eyes. William. Julia's voice cut through his reverie once more, and he blinked, refocusing on her. Are you listening? I was just saying how excited I am for that trip we're planning. Of course, I was just thinking about all the places we could visit, he replied, forcing enthusiasm into his tone. He wanted to be present, to share in her excitement, but the shadow of Sarah loomed too large. Right. Julia smiled, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. I can't wait to explore the art galleries and try all the local foods. It'll be such a great escape for us. Absolutely, William agreed, nodding fervently, yet his heart was not in it. In the back of his mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the precipice of something monumental, something that could change everything. Just then, Sarah approached their table, a hesitant smile on her lips. William's heart raced, and he felt a mixture of dread and nostalgia flooding his veins. The moment their eyes met, he could see a flicker of recognition in her gaze, a shared history that neither of them could ignore. Hi, William, Sarah said softly, her voice laced with an awkwardness that mirrored his own. I didn't expect to see you here. Hey, Sarah, he managed to reply, his voice unexpectedly hoarse. He glanced at Julia, whose expression was a mixture of curiosity and concern. This is Julia, my girlfriend, Julia interjected, her tone almost offensive. Nice to meet you, Sarah. Nice to meet you, too, Sarah replied, her eyes flicking between them with an unreadable expression. The tension hanging in the air was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. William felt a rush of emotions, the warmth of memories, the sting of pain, and the dull ache of unresolved feelings. He was acutely aware of Julia's hand tightening around his, a silent plea for reassurance. So, how have you been? He asked, trying to sound casual, but failing miserably. I'm doing okay, Sarah said, her gaze dropping to the floor for a moment before returning to meet his. I'm working here now, just trying to make ends meet. Her eyes flickered with a hint of vulnerability, and William's heart wrenched at the sight. Working as a waitress? Julia asked, her curiosity piqued. That must be tough. It has its challenges, Sarah replied, a slight smile playing on her lips. But I'm getting by. It's a job, and it helps me support myself, and she hesitated for a fraction of a second, her hand instinctively resting on her stomach. My baby. The words hung in the air like a lead balloon, and William felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him. You're having a baby, he stammered, disbelief washing over him. Yes, she said, her voice steady but her eyes betraying a storm of emotions. I found out a few months ago. It's been a lot to process. William could hardly wrap his mind around this revelation. A baby? His ex-wife was pregnant, and he hadn't been part of that decision, part of that journey. 1,000 questions raced through his mind. Who was the father? How had she ended up here? But all he could manage was, "Is everything okay?" Sarah nodded, though her expression was tinged with sadness. "I'm managing. It's been hard, but I'm doing my best." Julia's grip on William's hand tightened further. "Do you have any support?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "I do," Sarah replied, her tone evasive. "I have some friends and family who are helping me out." William's heart sank. He wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but he felt the weight of his current relationship pressing down on him. Why did he have to intrude on her life now? "I'm glad to hear that," Julia said, her voice warm yet cautious. She turned to William, her eyes searching for answers. "William, are you okay?" William was anything but okay. He felt as if he were teetering on the edge of a precipice, the past and present colliding in a chaotic swirl of emotions. I'm fine," he said, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "Good," Julia replied, her expression softening. "Maybe we can all catch up sometime." William shot her a look of disbelief. Was she really suggesting they all hang out? He felt the tension in the air thicken as he glanced back at Sarah, who looked equally shocked by the suggestion. That's kind of you, but I wouldn't want to intrude," Sarah said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "No, really," Julia insisted, her tone brightening. "I think it'd be nice. We could all grab coffee or something." William felt the walls closing in on him. This was a can of worms he wasn't ready to open. The thought of spending time with Sarah while navigating his feelings for Julia felt like a recipe for disaster. "Maybe we could just keep in touch for now," William suggested, the words slipping out before he could stop them. He looked at Sarah, searching for some sign of what she wanted. "Sure," she replied, her smile fading slightly. "That sounds good." "Great," Julia said, her voice cheerful, but William could sense the underlying tension. He could feel the fissures forming in their seemingly perfect evening, the cracks widening with every passing moment. As Sarah stepped away, William watched her retreating figure, a whirlwind of emotions crashing over him. He felt Julia's gaze on him, sharp and probing, and he knew they had entered uncharted waters. "William," Julia said gently, pulling him back to the present. "What just happened there?" He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck, a familiar gesture of anxiety. "I don't know, Jules. It's just complicated." "Complicated how?" she pressed, her voice steady but concerned. "I just didn't expect to see her here. And now," he paused, searching for the right words. "Now I have to process all of this." Julia nodded, her expression softening. "You don't have to explain everything to me right now, but I can see how much this is affecting you, and I want to be here for you." "Thank you," he murmured, grateful for her understanding, yet feeling the weight of the moment settle heavily on his shoulders. The reality of Sarah's pregnancy loomed large, and he knew he had a long road ahead, one that would force him to confront the ghosts of his past in ways he had never anticipated. William stepped outside, his heart racing as he followed Sarah into the cool evening air. The restaurant's soft glow faded behind them, replaced by the soft hum of night. The world felt different out here, the air thick with unresolved emotions. For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of their shared past hanging heavily between them. Sarah took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the pavement, as if searching for answers in the cracks. "I didn't expect to see you tonight," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Neither did I," William replied, his heart pounding in his chest. "You look different." She chuckled softly, a sound laced with irony. "Pregnancy does that to a person. But it's not just the baby. Everything has changed." She paused, glancing up at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of vulnerability and strength. "I didn't want to end up here, serving tables and barely making ends meet." William shifted uncomfortably, the guilt gnawing at him. "I had no idea things were so hard for you after the divorce. I thought you'd be okay." "Okay," Sarah scoffed, shaking her head. "I was lost, William. I had no idea how to pick up the pieces after you left. I moved to a new city, tried to start over, but it didn't work. I didn't have anyone to lean on. And now I'm here, waiting tables and trying to figure out how to raise a child on my own." "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low, filled with genuine regret. "I didn't know. I thought you were happy." "Happy," she echoed, her tone bitter. "You think I was happy watching our life together slip away? Watching you walk out the door like it was nothing? You moved on so easily, William." William's heart sank as he met her gaze. "It wasn't easy for me. I thought it was what we both needed. We were hurting each other. I thought time apart would help." "Help?" she asked, her voice rising. "You think time helps when you're alone, scared, and pregnant? I had to face everything by myself. The loneliness, the fear, it was suffocating." He opened his mouth to respond, but found the words stuck in his throat. He wanted to comfort her, to reach out, but he also felt the pull of Julia's presence back at the table. "I didn't know you were pregnant," he finally said, his voice softening. I wish I could have been there for you." Sarah looked down, her fingers nervously twisting the fabric of her shirt. "I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to burden you with my mistakes. I thought you'd be happy with your new life, with Julia." "Julia, she means a lot to me," William said, though the words fell hollow in his mouth. "But seeing you like this, it makes everything so complicated." "Complicated?" Sarah laughed, but it was devoid of humor. "This isn't just complicated, William. This is a mess. I've been trying to survive, and now I'm just trying to figure out how to raise this baby without you." For a moment, William could only stare at her, the pain in her voice striking him like a physical blow. "I didn't know you were struggling this much. I thought you'd found your way." "I was trying to find my way," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. "But every time I thought I had it figured out, life threw another obstacle at me. This baby, it's a gift, but it's also a reminder of everything I lost. And now, seeing you again, it's like reopening old wounds." William's chest tightened, the guilt settling heavy on his shoulders. "I wish I could take some of that pain away. I wish I could help you." "I don't need your pity, William," she replied, her voice steadier now. "I just needed you to understand that it hasn't been easy. You moved on, and I'm still stuck in the past, trying to deal with the fallout of our choices." "I'm not trying to pity you," he said, frustration creeping into his tone. "I just want to understand. I want to know what you've been through." "Do you really want to know?" she asked, crossing her arms defensively. "Because it's not pretty. I've had to work 2 jobs just to afford rent. I've cried countless nights, wondering how I'd manage when the baby arrives. And every time I see you on social media, living this perfect life, it feels like a dagger to my heart." William flinched at the raw honesty in her words. "I had no idea it was this bad. I thought you were moving on, too." "I was trying to," she confessed, her voice breaking. "But it's hard when the person you loved is out there, thriving without you. I've had to let go of so many dreams, William. And now, with this baby, It's like I'm being forced to relive everything." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history palpable in the air. William fought against the tidal wave of guilt crashing over him, torn between the woman he once loved and the new life he was trying to build. "Do you think we could ever, I don't know, be friends?" he asked hesitantly. "I mean, for the baby's sake?" Sarah shook her head, letting out a humorless laugh. "Friends? After everything we've been through, I don't know if that's possible. There are too many wounds. I'm not asking for much, just a chance to be there for you. For the baby," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "I don't want to walk away without knowing you're okay." "Okay isn't a word in my vocabulary right now," she replied, her chin quivering. "But I appreciate the sentiment. I just don't know how we can navigate this. We're both in different places now." William felt a pang of helplessness wash over him. "I wish things were different, Sarah. I wish I could turn back time and fix everything." "Me too," she said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But we can't. We have to face the reality of what we've created. You have your life with Julia, and I have this baby. It's not going to be easy." "I know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I still want to be there for you, even if it's just a little." As they stood there, the world around them faded into the background. The night was still, and for the first time since their encounter, William felt a flicker of hope amidst the turmoil. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to navigate this new reality together. Back inside the restaurant, Julia was tapping her fingers anxiously against the table, her eyes darting toward the door. The tension in the air was suffocating, and she felt a gnawing sense of unease. She had sensed the connection between William and Sarah, the way their eyes locked in understanding, and it unsettled her. When William finally re-entered the restaurant, he found Julia watching him intently, her expression a mixture of concern and suspicion. "What was that about?" she asked, her tone sharp. William hesitated, the weight of his conversation with Sarah pressing down on him. "We were just talking," he said, trying to sound casual. "Just talking," Julia echoed, crossing her arms. "It looked more intense than that. Are you sure there's nothing else going on?" "Julia, I swear," he began, but she cut him off. "Don't lie to me, William. I can see it in your eyes. There's something deeper between you two, and it's making me uncomfortable." William ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling to the surface. "It's complicated. Sarah's going through a lot. She's pregnant, and she's struggling. I didn't know until now." Julia's expression softened slightly, but the tension remained. "I get that, but what about us? I thought we were building something together. It feels like you're still tied to her." "I'm not tied to her. I want to be with you," William insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. "But I can't just ignore the past. It's a part of who I am." "Then be honest with me," she demanded, her voice rising. "I need to know if I'm competing with her for your heart." William's heart sank, the realization hitting him hard. He had been trying to navigate this new chapter of his life, but the ghosts of his past were haunting him in ways he hadn't anticipated. "I'm trying to be honest," he said, his voice low. "But it's hard to explain everything when I'm still processing it myself." Julia shook her head, disappointment etched on her face. "I need more than that, William. I need to know that I matter to you, that I'm not just a second choice while you figure out your feelings for her." "You're not a second choice," he pleaded, reaching across the table to take her hand. "You mean everything to me. But Sarah, she's part of my past, and I can't just erase that." "Maybe I need to rethink this," Julia said, pulling her hand away. "If you still have feelings for her, How can we move forward? William felt. William sat at the table, his heart racing as he watched Julia's face morph from confusion to hurt. He had just spoken the words he had been wrestling with in silence, the truth that had lingered at the edge of his conscience since the moment he saw Sarah again. "I still have feelings for her," he had said, each word feeling like a weight dropped into the depths of an ocean. The silence that followed was deafening. Julia's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and William felt a pang of guilt pierce him. It was a betrayal, he knew that. He had promised her his heart, but how could he deny the history that lay between him and Sarah? "You still love her, don't you?" Julia's voice was barely above a whisper, laced with a mixture of anger and disbelief. William opened his mouth to respond, to offer some kind of reassurance, but the words caught in his throat. He turned his gaze towards the window, watching the raindrops race down the glass, each one a reminder of the storm brewing inside him. "It's complicated, Julia. It's not that simple." "Complicated?" she echoed, her voice rising slightly as she struggled to contain her emotions. "You're telling me that you still have unresolved feelings for your ex-wife while we're trying to build something here? I thought we were happy, William." "We are happy. Or we were," he stammered, the realization crashing down on him like a wave. "I just didn't expect to see her like this, to hear about everything she's been through." Julia shook her head, her expression shifting to one of disappointment. "So what? You want to go back to her? You want to be with the woman who broke your heart?" "No, I don't know," William exclaimed, his frustration spilling over. "It's not about going back. It's about understanding, about closure. I just need to figure this out." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor, drawing the attention of nearby diners. "Figure it out? You're asking me to stand by while you sort through your feelings for someone else? That's not fair, William. I deserve better than this." "Julia, please." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, tears streaming down her cheeks. The sight of her hurt pierced him deeper than any confrontation with Sarah ever could. "I can't do this," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't compete with your past. I won't." Without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving William alone in the dimly lit restaurant, the noise of laughter and clinking glasses fading into an unbearable silence. He felt the weight of the world settle on his shoulders, guilt and regret mixing in a bitter cocktail that churned in his stomach. He glanced over at Sarah, who stood behind the counter, her gaze fixed on him. Her expression was unreadable, but he could see the flicker of concern in her eyes. He had never wanted to hurt Julia, but the gravity of his past was pulling him back in a way he hadn't anticipated. "William," Sarah said softly as she approached his table, her hand resting on the back of a chair. "Are you okay?" He let out a ragged breath, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "No, not really. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." She nodded slowly, her own eyes reflecting a mix of sympathy and understanding. "I know this is a lot for you. I didn't expect to see you here, either, or to run into you like this." He looked up at her, really looked. She was still beautiful, but there were shadows under her eyes he hadn't noticed before. "How are you? I mean, with everything." "Honestly," Sarah hesitated, biting her lip as she searched for the right words. "It's been tough. I'm trying to make things work, but—" She trailed off, glancing down at her hands. "I didn't think I'd be here, waiting tables while pregnant." "Pregnant," William echoed, the word heavy in the air between them. It was a reality he had to face, one that made his heart ache for her. "What happened, Sarah? After everything?" How did you end up here? She took a deep breath, the weight of her story evident in her posture. After the divorce, I thought I could stand on my own. I wanted to prove I could be okay without you. But life doesn't always go as planned. I lost my job, and things spiraled. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. William's heart sank as he listened. He felt a wave of guilt wash over him, knowing he had left her to navigate her struggles alone. I'm so sorry, he said softly. I had no idea. I didn't want you to know. I wanted to protect you from my mess. She replied, her voice barely a whisper. But it's hard to hide when everything is falling apart. They sat in silence for a moment, the air thick with unspoken words and shared memories. William felt the connection between them reignite, a spark that had never truly extinguished. Do you ever think about us? He asked tentatively, his heart racing. Every day, she admitted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. But it's complicated, isn't it? We both moved on, or tried to, at least. William's mind was a whirlpool of emotions. I thought I had moved on, he confessed, but seeing you again, it just brought everything back. I didn't realize how unresolved I still felt about us. Sarah looked away, her expression a mixture of longing and pain. It's not fair to Julia, William. She deserves someone who can commit fully. I know, he replied, his voice heavy with regret. But I can't help but feel this pull towards you, this connection that never really went away. Maybe some connections are meant to remain in the past, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Maybe we need to find closure, for both our sakes. William felt a pang of desperation at her words. The idea of closure felt like a door closing on the most significant chapter of his life. What if I can't? What if this is just the beginning of something new? Then you need to figure it out, she replied gently, her eyes locking onto his. You owe it to yourself and to Julia to be honest. You can't keep living in the shadows of what could have been. As they sat there, lost in the sea of their shared past and uncertain future, William realized that he was standing at crossroads. The weight of his choices pressed heavily on him, and he knew he had to confront the reality of his feelings. Maybe you're right, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. I need to be honest with myself, and with Julia. Sarah nodded, a flicker of understanding passing between them. Just remember, no matter the outcome, we both deserve happiness, even if it's not together. With those words, William felt the gravity of the moment settle around him like a shroud. He was torn between the past and the present, between the love he once had and the love he was trying to build. As he left the restaurant, the rain poured down outside, mirroring the turmoil in his heart. The path ahead was unclear, but he knew he had to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. William sat across from his close friend, Mark, in the dimly lit corner of a cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee swirling around them. Mark, with his tousled dark hair and keen eyes, leaned forward, sensing the turmoil within William. The weight of the world seemed to rest on William's shoulders, and it was clear that something profound was troubling him. William, you have to be honest with both of them, Mark said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. You can't keep pretending everything is fine when you're clearly torn. You owe it to Sarah, and you owe it to Julia. William rubbed his temples, feeling the pressure building behind his eyes. It's not that simple, Mark. I've moved on, or at least I thought I had. Seeing Sarah again, it stirred something in me that I didn't know was still there. Mark took a sip of his coffee, studying William with a mixture of concern and empathy. You can't ignore your feelings, man. If you're still attached to Sarah, you need to figure out before you drag Julia into this mess. She deserves better than to be in the shadow of your unresolved past. William sighed heavily, knowing Mark was right. Julia had been a breath of fresh air in his life, and he had genuinely thought he could leave his past behind. Yet Sarah's unexpected reappearance had pulled him back into a tumultuous tide of emotions he had been trying to evade. "What if I choose wrong?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Choosing is better than staying stuck in limbo," Mark replied. "You need to confront Sarah. Talk to her about what happened and what led her to this moment. You might find clarity, but you won't get it by burying your head in the sand." William nodded slowly, feeling the gravity of Mark's words. The idea of confronting Sarah filled him with apprehension, but deep down, he understood that he needed to face the truth to untangle the mess of his heart. "I'll do it," he finally said, resolve creeping into his voice. "I'll talk to her." As he exited the cafe, the weight of the world still lingered, but a flicker of determination ignited within him. He needed to clear the air with Sarah, to understand her choices and the path that had led her to this moment. The thought was daunting, yet it felt like the only way to move forward. When William arrived back at the restaurant, the familiar ambience felt different. The clatter of dishes and the low murmur of conversation surrounded him, but his focus was solely on Sarah. He spotted her at the counter, her hands deftly working as she served drinks to other patrons. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the conversation that lay ahead. "Sarah," he called out, his voice steady but unsure. She turned, her eyes widening slightly as she met his gaze. The warmth of nostalgia mixed with the chill of unspoken words hung heavy in the air between them. "William," she replied softly, her expression a mixture of surprise and apprehension. "What can I do for you?" "Can we talk?" he asked, gesturing toward a quieter corner of the restaurant. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded, her expression unreadable as she followed him. They settled into a secluded booth, the noise of the restaurant fading into the background. William could feel the tension in the air, thick and palpable. He looked at Sarah, her hands resting on the table, fingers nervously tapping against the wood. "I wanted to ask you about everything," he began, his voice steady. "About how you ended up here." Sarah took a deep breath, her gaze dropping to the table. "It's been hard, William. After the divorce, I didn't know what to do. I thought I could find my way, but life had other plans. I struggled to make ends meet, and when I found out I was pregnant, it was overwhelming." William's heart ached at her words, a mix of sympathy and regret bubbling to the surface. "I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't know you were going through so much. Why didn't you reach out? We could have talked." She looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "And say what? That I was lost without you, that I made mistakes. I didn't want to burden you with my problems. You had your life to rebuild, and I didn't want to be the one dragging you back." The truth of her words struck him, a painful reminder of their past. "But you're not a burden, Sarah. You were my partner. We shared everything. I wish you had trusted me enough to let me in." Her expression softened slightly, the wall she had built around herself beginning to crack. "Trust is a fragile thing, William. I felt like I shattered everything we had. It was easier to keep my distance." William reached across the table, his hand hovering above hers, hesitant but longing for connection. "We can't change the past, but we can talk about the future. What do you want for your life now?" Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, and for a moment, the weight of her decision hung in the air like a storm cloud. "I want to be a good mother. I want to provide for my child. I never thought I'd be doing this alone. I thought we'd have a family together." William felt a pang of guilt at her words, the realization dawning on him that their dreams had been shattered in ways he had never fully comprehended. "I want to support you. I want to help you in any way I can. You don't have to go through this alone." Tears slipped down Sarah's cheeks, and she wiped them away quickly, trying to regain her composure. It's just complicated. I've made choices that led me here, and I don't know how to reconcile that with what we once had. We can figure it out together, William urged, his voice steady. You don't have to do this in isolation. I'm here for you, even if it's not the way we envisioned. The weight of their past hung between them, yet in that moment, William felt a glimmer of hope. They could confront their shared history, and perhaps in doing so, they would find a path forward, even if it was uncertain. Meanwhile, miles away, Julia sat alone in her apartment, her heart heavy with doubt and confusion. She had spent the evening replaying the events at the restaurant, each memory stinging like a fresh wound. The image of William's face when he saw Sarah flooded her mind, and she felt a wave of insecurity wash over her. Can I really compete with someone from his past? She whispered to herself, staring into the empty space of her living room. The realization that William still had unresolved feelings for Sarah gnawed at her, leaving her feeling vulnerable and exposed. Julia had fallen for William wholeheartedly, the depth of her emotions taking her by surprise. Yet, the shadow of Sarah loomed large, casting doubt on their relationship. He's still tied to her, she murmured, frustration and sadness intertwining. How can I trust that he's truly ready to love me? She picked up her phone, scrolling through their messages, searching for reassurance in their words. But with each scroll, the doubt only deepened. She remembered the laughter they shared, the dreams they painted together, but it all seemed so fragile now. Maybe I should just walk away, she thought, her heart aching at the prospect. But the love she felt for William was real, and the idea of abandoning it felt like a betrayal to herself. What do I even want? She asked, feeling more lost than ever. Julia's thoughts spiraled, and she felt the weight of the love she had for William clash with the reality of his past. If I confront him, will he choose me? The thought terrified her, yet she knew she couldn't remain in limbo, holding on to a love that felt like it was slipping away. With a deep breath, she resolved to give herself time to think, to reflect on what she truly wanted. She needed to find clarity, not just for herself, but for William as well. The love they had shared deserved honesty, and she was determined to confront the situation head-on when the time was right. As the night wore on, both William and Julia grappled with their emotions, the path ahead uncertain but filled with the potential for growth and understanding. They were navigating through a maze of love and loss, each step bringing them closer to the heart of their intertwined fates. William stood alone in the dimly lit corner of the restaurant, an unsettling mix of relief and sorrow washing over him. He had made the decision to end his relationship with Julia, believing it was the only way to confront the tangled emotions that Sarah had stirred within him. The air felt charged, heavy with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. He could still feel Julia's tear-streaked face haunting him, the look of hurt and betrayal etched into her features as she had walked away. As he turned to face the entrance, he spotted Sarah again, her silhouette framed by the restaurant's bright lights. She was laughing softly with a customer, her eyes sparkling with a hint of the joy he once knew. But the laughter faded as she caught his gaze, a mixture of surprise and uncertainty washing over her face. William felt a pang of nostalgia, a reminder of the good times they had shared before everything unraveled. "William," Sarah said, her voice tentative as she approached him. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I just needed some air," he replied, running a hand through his hair. The truth was that he felt anything but okay. "I'm sorry about earlier. It's just been a lot to process." "I understand," she said softly, her eyes searching his for something, an answer, a sign, maybe even a hint of the love that had once bound them. I didn't mean to disrupt your evening. You didn't disrupt anything, he assured her, but the words felt hollow. The unresolved feelings hung between them, an invisible thread connecting their past to the present. I just didn't expect to see you here, working. Sarah nodded, her expression shifting. I need to find a way to support myself and the baby. It's not easy, but I'm managing. She hesitated for a moment, her gaze dropping to the floor. I've missed you, you know. William felt his heart clench. I've missed you too, Sarah. But it's complicated. Complicated, she echoed, her voice a whisper. That's one way to put it. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history pressing down on them. William's mind raced, the memories flooding back, the laughter, the arguments, the love that had once felt so strong. Now, it felt like a distant echo, a ghost of what they once had. Can we talk? Sarah finally asked, her eyes pleading for understanding. Really talk? Yeah, I think we need to, he replied, leading her outside where the cool night air offered a reprieve from the intensity of their emotions. The street was quiet, the distant sound of traffic a comforting backdrop. William, she began, her voice shaky. I never wanted to hurt you. When we divorced, I thought I could handle everything on my own. But I didn't. I struggled more than you know. I get that now, he said, his voice low. I've been caught up in my own life, my own successes, and I didn't realize how hard things were for you. I thought I had moved on, but seeing you tonight, he paused, looking into her eyes. It brought everything flooding back. Tears glistened in Sarah's eyes as she took a deep breath. I didn't want to come back into your life like this, but I needed to tell you something. It's important. What is it? His heart raced, anticipation and dread mingling in his chest. I'm not sure how to say this, but she hesitated, biting her lip. The father of my baby, it's not you. William felt the ground shift beneath him. What do you mean? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I met someone during our separation. She confessed, her gaze falling to the ground. It was a mistake, and I thought it was just a fling, but it turned into something more complicated than I ever anticipated. I didn't plan for this to happen. A cold wave of betrayal washed over him, mingling with the hurt that had begun to subside. You didn't even tell me, he said, his voice trembling. I thought we were honest with each other. I know, and I'm so sorry, she replied, tears streaming down her face. I didn't have the courage to face you. I thought you would hate me. I don't hate you, Sarah, he said, taking a step closer. But this changes everything. I thought we were trying to find a way back to each other. Maybe we still can, she suggested, her voice laced with hope. We can figure this out together. Together, he echoed, the word heavy with implications. How can we be together when you're having someone else's child? I need to know what you want, Sarah. I want to be okay, she admitted. I want to move on, but I also want to confront everything we left unresolved. I want closure, William. William felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. Closure. It was something he had desperately needed since their divorce, but had never truly understood. And what does that mean for us? I don't know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I know we can't keep pretending like everything is fine. We need to be honest about our feelings and what we want moving forward. As William looked in her eyes, he realized that he couldn't hold onto the past any longer. Their relationship had been filled with love, but it had also been marred by misunderstandings and mistakes. He needed to embrace his own future, one that didn't involve Sarah, no matter how much he felt for her. Sarah, I think I need to focus on myself now, he said carefully. I can't be the man you need me to be right now. I can't ignore the fact that you're having a baby with someone else. It's too much for me. Her expression fell, and William felt a pang of regret. "I understand," she said softly, wiping her tears. "I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted to share my truth. I appreciate that, and I want you to know that I'm here for you," he said, his heart aching for her. "But I can't be the one you lean on. It's not fair to either of us." "Then what do we do now?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Maybe it's time for us to let go," he suggested, his voice steady. "You need to focus on your future and your baby, and I need to find my own path without being tied to our past." "I don't want to lose you, William," she confessed, her voice breaking as she spoke. "You won't lose me," he reassured her. "I'll always care about you, but we have to embrace the reality of our situation. You're on a new journey, and I have to start mine." As they stood there in the cool night air, a bittersweet sense of freedom enveloped them. William felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He knew that this was a necessary step toward growth, both for himself and for Sarah. "Thank you for understanding," Sarah said, her voice filled with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. "I'll always cherish the moments we had, William." "Me too," he replied, offering her a reassuring smile. "Take care of yourself and your baby. You're stronger than you think." With one final look, they parted ways, each stepping into the unknown. As William walked away, he felt a new sense of purpose blossoming within him. He would pour his energy into his work, creating a life filled with meaning and fulfillment. Though the road ahead was uncertain, he embraced it with open arms, knowing that true growth often comes from facing the past honestly and learning to let go.